I live on the upper western... Pardon me. I live on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, which is more like 1962 America and no big police presence. The doormen in the big apartment buildings keep an eye on things, but there's no sense of danger lurking in dark alleys. Due to the fact that there are no alleys to lurk in, you'd need to lurk out in the open. It's a neighborhood of social workers, teachers, union organizers, shrinks, musicians, freelance activists, and the less successful lawyers who read the Times faithfully and grieve for the sorrows of the world and then console themselves with a croissant and a double latte. I stand on our terrace and look at the sun setting over the Hudson and think about the explosion that created the universe 13.7 billion years ago. A universe expanding still, our Milky Way soon to collide with Andromeda, our sun to expire in a mere 5 billion years, and this tells me the cosmos is not serene and our civilization is a microscopic footnote. God gives us a few moments here and we should take delight in them, and so I do. I feel the rumble of the trains running under Central Park West, a great innovation of the early 20th century that lets you board a train and be in Midtown in 7 minutes. The suburbs of Connecticut and New Jersey came later in the automobile age, and rush hour is a horror. So commuters email and text behind the wheel, shave, do makeup, driving 3 miles per hour, steering with their knees, Zooming with colleagues. Many doctors got their degrees taking online courses while commuting, which means you might go in for a tonsillectomy and come out missing your left lung. Living in Manhattan isolates us from these harsh realities, besides which I am retired and so every day is Saturday, but I hear stories. I know that the world can come crashing down any day, not for me, not quite yet, but for other people. People call and tell me these things, all the more so when they find out I'm writing a book about cheerfulness. Some days I feel like I'm the Wailing Wall for prots. I hear about knee replacements, a layoff, a despicable minister, an Anglican who married into a family of right-wing evangelicals, a QAnon niece, a classmate sliding into the darkness of dementia, a friend planning a memorial service for his mom's dog, trouble with a capital T, and that rhymes with P, and that stands for Protestant. Stories about folks who've been on the job for 10, 15 years, feeling part of the office family, and then new management comes in and the blade falls. You worked your way up in the skin division of amalgamated potato, and one day a white envelope appears on your desk and you are now roadkill, a dark smear on the corporate highway. You worked day and night, kissed every ass that was offered, and then the hedge fund that owned AP sold it to Fudge Fund, and they switched from spuds to spaghetti and decimated the workforce to turn humongous profits so the company could be sold to a slush fund and make them dizzy rich. And you, Mr. Potato Head, get a handshake and an offer of a job with the new company if you attend a 6-week transformation class at a concrete origami seminar center with big skylights and indoor trees to learn how a holistic value structure facilitates dynamically through all functions of the organization from the bottom up. But then you remember what Emerson said, quote, "When you are shown the door, take it as a window of opportunity," end of quote. And you head for Alaska and open up a fishing camp. This happened to a guy I know. People in Alaska do real things all day, and at night they tell stories about them. That's why Alaska is there, to give you an alternative to the monkey island of corporate life. Beyond the grid, the level of BS, CS, and HS drops sharply as the reality of mountains appears. Dense fogs descend on most organizations, and people with porcelain hairnets tell you what to do in a language they themselves have invented, and that is the time to get out of town. A classic American solution. Put dead history behind you and you'll open up vistas shining and new. It's a big country. Goodbye, Minneapolis. Hello, Manhattan. I know a little about dread. I grew up reading about nuclear devastation, a blazing flash in the sky that would reduce us kids to scorch marks on the sidewalk. My dad fell off a barn roof and fractured his skull, and I knew from the sound of Mother's voice that he might die. He did not then. A dear cousin was blinded by the sunrise and pulled out on the highway and was killed instantly by a speeding semi. A gifted musician was hit by a stroke, which left him half paralyzed, unable to play. His calling vanished into thin air. I saw my friend Bill Hinckley dying at the VA hospital, miserable from the drugs he was getting, his legs not working right. He asked if I knew, quote, "Abide with me," end of quote. And so I sang it, and he sang with me as I helped him to the toilet, arms around him, sang about the deepening shadows as life's little day ebbs away and other helpers fail and earth's joys grow dim. Lord, help of the helpless, abide with me. His misery was profound. There was nothing to do for him except be there. I saw my friend Chet Atkins after he had been mauled by a stroke and a brain tumor, and I knew he didn't want me to see him like that, in a wheelchair, wrapped in an overcoat, a guitar on his lap, though he couldn't do anything with it. I talked to him about Uncle Dave Macon and the Dixie Dewdrop, Maybelle Carter, Red Foley, Hank Williams, people he knew when he was on the way up. And there he sat, a mournful shadow of himself. Then I remembered our tour out west with his band. Our chartered jet hit rough air over Colorado, and his guitarist Paul Yandell said, "I can see the headline. Chet Atkins and Garrison Keillor and 4 others die in plane crash, and I'll be one of the others." Chet laughed at that, sort of. It wasn't depressing to visit the dying. It was a mission. Nobody should die alone. We need to see our people to the end of the block. No need for pity. Small talk does just fine. Tell them about your week, where you went, who you saw, what they said. No bad news. Reminisce. Talk about food. Tell a joke. A stroke didn't decimate me. A doctor put me on a blood thinner and levetiracetam, and here I am writing in a steady hand with a pen on a yellow legal pad, which gives me a basis for gratitude, which is a wellspring of cheerfulness. Friends ask me, "How are you?" And I say, "Never better." I only have a certain number of friends. Some have died or moved to Arizona. 2 are in memory units and don't know me from Genghis Khan or Grace Kelly. So I am counting on these remaining pals to converse with, such as 2 old guys I knew when I was a kid. Our conversations would be meaningful to only about 4 other people on the planet, and when they're gone, I'll have nobody to talk to who remembers the West River Road circa 1951 or Stan Nelson's gym class, or could appreciate the thrill of riding in Will Peterson's VW with the Danish exchange student sitting on my lap. My middle decades were turgid, a forest of obligations, but Anoka High is still clear in our minds, the hallways, the lockers, who hung out with whom. Friendship is a secret shared language, and friends are irreplaceable. Arvon, Don, Corinne, Sydney, Bill, Irv, Chet, Paul, Roland, George, Arnie, Bob, Howard, Helen, Jean, Philip, Bruce, all departed. I can hear their voices. I remember them in their cheerful moments, at the wheel of a car, turning to tell me something important and interesting. "20 years ago, I stood out on West End Avenue at 2:30 a.m. with George Plimpton hailing a cab, and he said, 'Friendship is what it's all about. It's what it's always been about.' He'd been drinking scotch. I was sober, and we were only distant acquaintances, but I was a fan of his books, and it had been a wonderful party, and it was a fall night, and the city felt golden. He was Exeter, Harvard. His dad was a diplomat. His ancestors came over on the Mayflower. He had an odd accent, like his tongue was bandaged. I was Anoka High and U of M. My dad was a railway mail clerk. My people came out of the slums of Glasgow and the woods of Canada. I talked flat Midwestern. He had beautiful manners that put people at ease, and at 2:30 a.m. we felt a bond. We had known Hemingway and Ezra Pound and Frost and liked to talk about them and their revels with lady friends. He was a gent whose social circle intersected with the Bushes, but he had gone off to Paris at the age of 26, lived in a tool shed with an army cot, went to the Hotel Plaza F&A to steal stationery and write to his parents that he was doing well. He met Jacqueline Bouvier. They drank vin ordinaire. He helped found the Paris Review, his true love. I'm a Minnesotan with a snooty attitude toward Harvard guys, but George had a generous soul, and I got over it.